But we have to first convince ourselves that election is a circus.
Yes.
Parliamentary election is a circus and this is not helping us. How much reform is not the question. How to implement reform is the main question. Because how much reform already we know.
Syed Hasibuddin Hussain, a political activist based in Bangladesh, serves as the media coordinator of the Rastro Songskar Andolon and the co-convenor of the citizens' platform Voice for Reform.
Thing that we have in hand is the reform, the opportunity of reform. We have to just concentrate on getting this reform done. These are not the issues that we need to spend time.
Absolutely. Almost 2,000 people didn't die. Almost 30,000 people didn't get injured, give up their eyes, arms, just to change the people in power, change the faces in the posters. It's not like that.
Exactly.
Why do so many see a national election without institutional reforms as an exercise in futility? I'm your host, Sakib Pratyay, and today we explore how politics is packaged as a spectacle for the masses and what it will take to break free from the cycle.
Hasibuddin Hussain, thank you so much for joining PLP Podcast. Would you care to give a brief description about yourself, like who you are, where you are coming from, and where you see your place in the society in Bangladesh?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Syed Hasibuddin Hussain. I live in Dhaka. I belong to a political party called Rastro Songskar Andolon, which is like the sort of a reform party.
The state reform movement.
State reform movement. So we are basically, our political agenda is we feel that the political power structure that our constitution has given, that allows political party who are in power, extreme power. So therefore, it cannot fail to serve the people. So it's the fact that our political parties, once they go into power, they become autocratic, is a function of this structure of our constitution, the amount of power. So we feel that Bangladesh people, politics is based on, at least when it happens properly, when the power is transferred through election. So it's an electoral democracy. But sadly, because of the constitutional structure, this cannot fail to serve the people. So we feel that in order to make our state people-friendly, we need to have constitutional reform. So I am responsible for the media wing of our political party. This party was formed 3 years ago, but its origin dates back about 10 years.
To Rastro Chinta.
To Rastro Chinta.
That's the think tank.
Initially, we started with think tank we started publishing a journal and started developing this thought or sort of taking to different parts of the people. So we initially felt that political parties will take up this agenda.
Mm-hmm.
We did not think that we would have to come, but it was very clear very soon to us that in order to make a difference, we have to become a political party and we have to be powerful enough to change. But thankfully, our effort did not go in vain, because this reform agenda was taken up by this movement, this July movement, very strongly. And the people also felt that it's not just the electoral transfer of power, but there needs to be structural changes. So that is the reality. We feel that our effort, even though we were very small, even when we turned into a political party, our presence all around Bangladesh was not that big, but in result, we saw a very big impact. I have to say that before the dummy election, there was a dummy move.
January 7th.
Because it's a dummy election. Dummy because most of the participants in the election were set up by the Awami League. So they were dummy candidates. So it was Awami League versus Awami League. That was the situation. So,
Call a rose by any other name.
so whatever. So it was a dummy election. So that's why we had a dummy movement before the dummy election. During that movement, we formed an alliance called Bharatantra Moncho, where we were able to unite initially 7 parties who take up the agenda of reform. So
That was back in 23 or 22.
I think it was back in 23, even 22, I think August of 22. That's when it was formed. So we sort of, we had a parallel movement with BNP in 23. And when BNP, the big wigs were caught, then we were left on the ground. So till January 7, we're on the ground. After January 7, we continued to be on the ground till August 5. So that's our political party. Small party with big ambition and big impact, I would say.
Big impact, because we have seen on the graphitis of July, everywhere the voice of people was, we need reform. We want reform. That was the number one agenda. So you actually passed on the baton to the new generation successfully, I would say.
Ultimately, because we believe our politics is about reform. We know very clearly that without reform, without the centralized power that our constitution gives, I think we need to give some examples of how centralized our constitution gives to the prime minister. Basically, our prime minister is the chief of the legislative wing, because he or she is the leader of the
Ruling political party.
party. And we have our constitution. This is one part of the Article 70 says that nobody in the ruling party parliamentarian can give their opinion.
No floor crossing allowed.
Not floor crossing. They're not, if they even stay silent on any issue, abstain from giving their vote, then their parliament membership will be taken away. So which means that she rules the parliament, majority party member, and then on the government side, she is the prime minister. So she chooses all the cabinet member. So executive is, she holds the executive. So we are left with the judiciary, we might think. But constitutionally, every judicial appointment is controlled by the Ministry of Law.
Exactly.
So therefore, judiciary also reports to her. And what we have seen during the movement, July movement, that she was calling police officers in specific thanas, so specific precincts, and telling them what to do and telling them to shoot. There's a sort of phone conversation that got out, which says that specific area, Mahmudpur in Dhaka city, which is close by. So she was saying that, yes, you go and it will be dealt with. So she was an entire police force was reporting to her. So all the government organizations, from our neighborhood guy to all the way up to the Chief Justice, I mean, they were under her whim. And this is constitutional. That's the problem. It is not that she was overstepping her power. No, she was given the constitutional power. So hence, we know very clearly that if we do not reform our constitution and sort of redistribute the power that is vested on the prime minister, we have a very bleak future. In fact, we won't be able to even start our journey to take these people to a different reality.
I'll come back to the constitution, but let's first address that dummy movement that you're talking about. Now we have seen that the biggest political party in Bangladesh, the BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, they're saying that they have this 31-point agenda of reform. And I've been on the ground and I've seen you guys kind of push BNP and other political parties to take up the agenda of reform. So now they're saying that, okay, they were the first, if not the first, like they were the pioneers of idea of reform. So do you have any opinion on that? What actually happened?
The story is when we formed the Ganatantra Mancho back in probably September or August of 2022, we knew very well that
Who were with you?
the parties were Rastro Songskar Andolon,
Joad Saki.
with Sakib, JST, Joshua JST, Mr. Rob. Then we had PLP Workers Party, Mr. Saiful Haq. Then we had the Bhashani Onushari Porishor, Mr. Bablu. Hi. Then we had Gon Odhikar Porishor,
Noor.
Noor Haq Noor. Then we were there, and Nagorik ঐক্য, Mr. Mahmoud Manda.
Okay.
So these were the 7.
Dr. Jahedur Rahman Nagorik.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, initially, I think the what we sold, the pitch was that at that point in time, BNP was there, but they were, as we all know, that for 15 years they were right. I mean, judicial problem that they were like most of their workers had whatever some case under them, so all of them were fleeing. They couldn't stay in their area. So we felt that there was a possibility that people can get some hope if there was a platform by these sort of politically closed people, a center or center left. That was our selling point. And it was sold and this was created, but when we created, we did manage to convince them that just forming an alliance is not going to do the trick. We need to have a political agenda, and reform was the agenda. So at that point in time, I think people agreed because of the political need of that time. And they were not sold to the reform agenda, all of them, not in the same degree. I would say most of them were not convinced. However, they chose to become a front because politically it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were working behind the scene, we were working, giving the message not to the people only, we were also giving the message to our companion political parties. And we saw very clearly that within a few months, everyone adopted the issue of reform.
Mm-hmm.
When we were in touch with BNP, we could manage, we being Rastro Songskar Andolon being a very small part, behind the scene we could manage that, convince Ganatantra Mancho that, wait a minute, Ganatantra Mancho is about reform. So if we are trying to create a parallel movement, then we should say that, please, you have to also agree to this movement, this reform agenda.
Yes.
Because if you do not accept the reform agenda, how can we have a propeller? Because just removing the incumbent party from power does not serve the purpose of the people. So at that point in time, BNP had to court Ganatantra Mancho because they needed civil society support to get away from the Jamaat-e-Islami tag that they had.
Yes.
So that's why this was sort of a win-win relationship. So they agreed to negotiate with us. And we had to work 6 months.
Okay.
6 months with BNP for this agreement. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you look at the 31 points and if you look at history, then Ganatantra Mancho also had 31 points.
Are they the same?
No. Which means that ultimately the reform agenda that we were there, it could not be accepted in toto. So there were some negotiations, something they agreed, but we could not come with a joint declaration. But we politically, we said that though, okay, we also have a 31 point. so that people get the idea that the unity of the movement is there. We did not want to say, no, we don't have unity, which means that BNP 31 points that BNP talks about, if you want to look at it, it originates through their relationship in Ganatantra Mancho. And Ganatantra Mancho, a genesis, has this reform agenda, like I told you. So behind the scene, that's what happened.
What would you say the major differences are in those two different 31 points? One from the Democratic Platform, one from BNP.
One of the big difference was that about proportional representation. BNP did not agree with proportionalness. Then another, if I can remember, was
They wanted first past the post.
correct.
Huh.
And another was the Article 70. They were, what we were proposing that apart from floor crossing, Article 70 will not apply. Only for floor crossing, Article 70, because during Pakistan regime, we had a terrible experience of floor crossing.
So even for the budget is fine.
Even for the budget, initially, in our proposal, if I remember correctly, for budget, probably we had also budget. If I don't quote me on it, I can't be specific. But for BNP, what they wanted was that for any security information and constitutional reform, they wanted Article 70. So that was the difference, that we were only two, and they, additional to this, we felt that whenever you say security concern, you can add anything. So that could not protect the rights of the people. Then the other thing that we had problem is, we were saying that prime ministers cannot be in power in maximum two terms, and BNP's position were consecutive 2 terms. So, and there was a sort of a disagreement over the preamble of it, but for the dummy movement, we agreed. So that was the situation of BNP and 31 point we found.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to the dummy movement. Why did you call that the dummy movement?
We don't call it. It's just a fun thing. So one of our friends has tagged it. Post. It was not a dummy post. When you run a movement against Army League regime, it's nothing dummy about it. Your life is at stake.
Yes.
And so we took our that stake, and we were on the road. Physically, you could see us in not every part of the city, but we were there. So just by the fact of us being there, I think that kept the hope alive. If we were not there, then this quota movement would not be there, because hope would have died. So hence it is not a dummy movement. Even before the election, right after the election, we did to go back to our home. That the election was, we couldn't stop them. So, we continued the movement.
Okay.
So it was nothing dummy about it.
And then finally, 5th of August 2024 came. The whole scenario changed. And there is this thing that's going on right now. Asim Mahmood Swajib Bhuiyan, he wrote a book recently that came out. And there he is claiming that on the 5th of August, before they went public in a press conference at Channel 24's office, they had a Zoom meeting or online meeting with Tariq Rahman, where Tariq Rahman categorically said that, okay, the new government should have only like 7 advisors and 1 chief advisor, and it should only do the routine tasks and do bare minimum reforms needed for an election, and within 3 months it should go. Given election, just go. Did you know about it?
No, I did. So my understanding is 5th August, that was a crazy time. Even in the morning, we were out there in university area, and we didn't know that Sheikh Hasina was going to fall. So by the evening, I don't think it gives enough time to anybody to get hold of get the understanding of the situation and what needs to happen. So which means that I do not put too much importance on what was happening in Mr. Tariq Rahman's mind, because I remember very clearly that when we were walking through Dhaka University with the procession going to Ashaba, there were people who were asking for army rule, and in 3 o'clock, same thing were happening, that there was army rule. The Jamaat Islami element or Chhatro Shibir element, they were asking for army rule. So you cannot hold Jamaat responsible now that, you do want army rule. I'm sure that they don't want army. I would give too much emphasis. What I would give emphasis is what BNP is doing right now.
Exactly.
Which is not happening when they're not hiding what they want. They want to go to power as soon as possible. In a country where there are only 2 parties, it's a simple math. You take one party out, then it's a simple math that this remaining party will if you hold an election, automatically they will be the winner. It's just simple math. So BNP being a political party and a power-based political party, they would behave exactly the way they should behave. If we say that they're not respecting the revolution, we can say that, but I wonder that won't be too rational.
The reason people are saying that they are still moving ahead with the 31 point that they formulated well before the movement came out back in 2024's July and August, right? So just like during our liberation war, the Constituent Assembly that was elected in 1970, when they formed the Constitution for Bangladesh in 1972, there were Bhashani and other people who were opposing it, saying that, that was the Constituent Assembly for East Pakistan, not for Bangladesh. So they should not have the mandate to write the Constitution for Bangladesh. The same thing applies. Now they're saying that we have all the reform agendas in our mind and we should be able to lead with this 31-point agenda. But does not that ignore how people felt, how people's will have changed by going through this turbulent time during the July Revolution?
The way we sort of analyze history, both personally and from a party point of view, we do not feel that the 72 Constituent Assembly did not have the mandate. I think if we were to hold a referendum in the March of 1972, that whether we want this elected body to continue, I think they would win clearly. Because the election goes, I remember 165 and 167 seats. So it's like a ridiculous majority, absolute majority that Awami League had. So yes, I know that there is this argument from the left and that, this was, it's a technical matter. So I kind of feel that
I would like to just add a little point over there. Nukta. In 1970, there was this cyclone that devastated Bangladesh.
Correct.
Bhashani and all the other national leaders, they were actually going to the people trying to help them. And at that time, Sheikh Mujib and Awami League were just campaigning for the election. So there is that other parties didn't get to campaign.
Okay, but Bhashani did not even participate.
Yes,
Bhashani
exactly.
gave them the buy. So whatever it is, politically, once you do that, then you have to accept the result.
In 2014, we have seen there was only one party election, BNP didn't participate.
So which means that, so I go back to the Constituent Assembly, a question that you asked, whether they had the mandate or not. In my view, they had the mandate.
Okay.
It's a technically, you can challenge it, but practically, rationally, that cannot be challenged. What they did and what they did not do, that can be challenged. Okay, because even our writer of our Constitution,
Dr.
Kamal Hussain, on the record said that in front of him, there was only Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So the people were not in front of him. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was there. So the document is there, so we can analyze the 1972 Constitution. The what is the actual power structure of the 1972 Constitution. And what we find is that Constitution gave absolute power to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It was very clear that the individual, if you look at the wording, that okay, the Prime Minister, the relationship of or power distribution between the Prime Minister and the President, you would see that it's clearly written that the President has probably two powers in 1972, that calling the majority party leader to form the government and just the Chief Justice. That was there. Other than that, everywhere President's responsibility was mentioned, was said that President will have to act based on the advice of the Prime Minister. Fine, okay. We have tutelar president in a lot of different states. The important part was that you can find the intention of whoever wrote this. The next part of the Constitution where it's written that even though, so it's like the first thing is according to the advice of the Prime Minister. Next clause, it's written that, but no one can ask in the court of justice what advice did the Prime Minister give to the President, even whether any advice was given. So it's like crazy. It's just, you could see the sort of the intention of the Prime Minister Sheikh Mujibur Rahman during that time.
It wasn't transparent at all.
It was clearly said. When you have it, say anybody who's a 10th grader will understand that this is contradictory. How is it like you're saying advice and then say no, you can't ask for that? This is just silly.
Yes.
So, which means that this particular constitution was doomed. The Prime Minister was a part of it, and the power was concentrated to that Prime Minister.
With no accountability.
No accountability whatsoever. But the funny thing is that for almost half a century, there's this propaganda out there that 1970 Constitution was so great.
Best constitution ever made.
I think they compare it with the Fourth Amendment when even a single party system was created. But yes, it is better than that. So I mean, I feel that in 72, the Constitutional Assembly, I think it was, our position is that people had the mandate, but the presence of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, did not allow any conversation. You know what he did? Anybody in his party, everybody was part of his party, correct? So anybody who raised any question during the Constitutional Assembly sessions, he just threw him out of the party. And because he is not a party member, he would lose his assembly membership. This was done by him multiple times. It's like crazy. So this is how to sharp their voice. You see, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes, it does.
You know about there's psychological tests that has been done that shows that sort of like a role play experiment where you say is a prisoner and somebody is a guard, and you give them a way of asking questions, and if somebody is making a mistake, you can punish them by giving electric shocks. The experiment, what it turns out, what happened is these guards who this is a fictitious power. It's not a real power. They're not the guard. They know they're part of the experiment. They would give shock to the prisoners,
Yes.
to the amount that might kill them.
The fictitious prisoners.
Fictitious prisoners in the experiment, they would do that. So which means that when you put somebody in power, give them power, unaccountable power,
Yes.
then their morality gets corrupted. So I believe that that's what happened to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. he right after he returned, I think by his actions, not my judgment, you can see that his power was corrupt. In 1973, there was an election. He had all the powers, right? But he had to uh, uh, sort of engineer that election. I mean, it's crazy that he was about to have 270 seats out of 300, and the students JSD, they were sort of competed at that point, but he had felt that. So I think that is the problem that I see in 1972 constitution making, the corruption of power.
Well, yeah, that's why Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, we do not want to call him the father of the nation anymore, because maybe he's the father, but if a father rapes the child when the child is grown up, you do not respect that person anymore. You don't. That person is a criminal. And from 72 to 75, the acts that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has done clearly portrays him in that light: a tyrant, somebody who has no regard for people's sovereignty, pretty much.
But I feel that if you look at the recent surveys even, that there are people who feel very emotional about Sheikh Mujibur. So I feel that we need to respect their concern, their position, and therefore this doesn't help us. Okay, father of the nation, I will choose to stay silent, but not to those part of the army regime,
Yes.
who were involved in amassing wealth, stealing wealth, killing people, putting people in Ainaghar. No, they need to be tried by our law, and we need to have followed due process into getting them. But there are supporters that we see, and we're very saddened to see that the supporters of Awami League, even whatever happened in front of them with all the mountain of evidence of corruption, we find that still they feel that this particular thing, whatever that happened, is a conspiracy and whatnot. So they're in denial. So that I feel sad about, but still I respect their emotion, because ultimately this is our nation.
Mm-hmm.
We're one people. We need to move forward. So we need to have respect for whatever who doesn't believe. I believe that it is their right. I don't have to agree with them. So let them, and we need to concentrate on things that we have in hand. Is a thing that we have in hand.
Yes.
Is the reform, the opportunity of reform. So we have to just concentrate on getting this reform done. These are not the issues that we need to spend time.
Absolutely. So many people, almost 2,000 people didn't die, almost 30,000 people didn't get injured, give up their eyes, arms, just to change the people in power, change the faces in the posters. It's not like that. And the sad part is, even if the students, the good students with goodwill for the betterment of the people, even if they get into power, when the system isn't changed, then nothing will change. It will be the exact same thing. It will be
Exactly.
so. We have to put solid fail-safes. We have to put ironclad rules in the constitution, and the institutions must be reformed so people are safe, because people are being oppressed. You had a theory that it's politics in Bangladesh is treated like a game, something like a game of high-stakes poker where the winner takes all. So you are allowed to bluff, you're allowed to cheat, and that is considered something, your skill set to be a politician. Do you care to elaborate on that?
Not the game. My theory is that it is a circus.
Okay.
Okay. The circus has some rule, right? That you have to buy a ticket, get to the the stadium, and then there will be some sort of things that were happening. Lions would come, gladiators would come, and they would fight out. I'm talking about the Roman times. So, and people will just see that this is the real thing. They would wait for a circus for a month, and then actually the circus will happen. They go home, while the Roman emperor would do whatever they want, right? They would have their orgies and whatnot, and people would just be hungry on the streets. Now, so I believe that in subcontinent, at 47. This electoral system is a circus. Election should be a part of our civic society because we want our representatives to go there and they would take whatever the taxes that we give. They're supposed to manage these taxes. They're supposed to manage the work of the states, right? But what we see in East Pakistan from the 47, that the politics was to send the Englishmen out of the country and assume their seat by the brown sahibs.
Exactly.
And they would enjoy the power and enjoy the money because relatively, I think the English system had lots of checks and balance because they had to report to the Queen. But now they were on top, no checks and balance. So it became a very good business. You could enjoy power and also wealth. So Bangladesh was born and that system continued, that everyone understood that it's a once in a generation opportunity to be part of the government. And once you exercise your right, then 2 or 3 generations will not have to worry. But nowadays, we have made it more efficient. Now 100 generations will not have to worry.
You have hit the jackpot.
That has happened. So the entire system is a rent-seeking system. If you look at any poster anywhere in Bangladesh political poster, you'll see that the Sheikh Hasina, then Joy, or the Kawa Kader, and then some leaders, some parliamentary leader, and someone from this locality would be there, and you would have the big photo of the person who's printing this poster, and below that it will be like, the people have published this thing, that this guy had nothing to do with it. But when you look at it, you can analyze that who gets money and how it's distributed. This gentleman gets money from that gentleman gets money, the parliamentary member gets money, the power to make money from the Mr. Kadir, and the Mr. Kadir gets the power to make money and to exercise power from Sheikh Hasina. So this entire system of our election, our politics is somehow to make power and make money. Now, if the political parties can, because they enjoy the game, the circus, they could have designed this game. That was not my problem. Sadly, the audience of this circus, the populace, they have also bought this idea that this is the purpose of politics. So like people like us who have taken massive risk during Hasina regime, the risk was not lower than any BNP politician because we were vocal. So we will be considered, though you guys are not political party. This you cannot call 50,000 people in the same. So you are not really political party. But they don't understand, or they should understand, that if you want to bring 50,000 people, even BNP calls for a meeting like that, and if you don't spend money, then they will not be able to get 2,000 people on. So what they've done, they have to pay for the bus ride, the thing, and daily payment. Yes. So which means that whenever a political party does that, then they're corrupted, and then it's just clear that they will not be able to serve the people. This simple math is absurd because the circus is in town. Okay. So I think what needs to happen, that the electoral democracy, we have to understand what has happened. It's our responsibility and also the responsibility of civil society to understand this. I have to tell you, the civil society also believes this to be true.
That's why educated people or qualified people don't actually go into politics. They shy away from politics.
Correct. But it is one of the most important part of our society. That they're the manager of the society. They're civil society person. They're children's.
Yes.
Everybody, their neighbor, everything depends on this. So this very interesting story that if you are a politician in Bangladesh, everybody thinks that you are doing politics because you want to make money. Oh my God, you'll be a minister. But politics is not about being the minister. Politics is about to getting this manager right, to make them accountable. And in our case, to change the system to make this accountable. So, I feel weird that how disconnected our civil society is from actual politics, and they judge politics based on those brutes who have sucked us dry, the entire country. They know that, but still they feel that there's some kind of legitimacy of big political parties and their muscle, their culture of stealing. I mean, 5th August, the neighborhood that I live in, Gulshan, the market, the chadabaji, the rent, was taken by BNP. I was reported when after all these things, I went back to my home at 1 o'clock at night. And then my guard reported that, so you are returning from that, and meanwhile the Gulshan market, the power has changed. There's a new master in town. So this is the system. We have to understand that this is a system, this is circus, and this is not how it's done. Electoral democracy is about choosing the managers who can best manage this country.
So do you think it has something to do with our feudal mentality to some extent? Like everybody wants to carve out their own piece of Bangladesh fiefdom. I have this particular area, so I will be the ruler, I will be the master of that particular area, and I will just give some like old Zamindar Protham.
I feel that in if you look at history of Bangladesh, here even in 19th century, if you go back to the Mughal era, the Jagirdars, we did not have big Jagirdars. We did not have large states with large. If somebody were to say, okay, these are the big zamindars in Mughal time, no, because if in Mughal times these Jagirs were a mode of payment to Mughal administrators. So it was, Subab Bengals, whoever. I mean, there were very few people who had large zamindars. So that is another story. That usually these people were already, they were landholders before the Mughal came. So Mughal, when they had a truce with these people, they were giving a bit larger. But fast forward to the British times, if you look at East Bengal did, I mean, you can look at it and you will find that there are small landholders. Even zamindars were not big zamindars. If you, like for example, if you went to Pakistan, Larkana with the Bhutto thing, you could drive for 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, and you'd still be in that their zamindari. Where in Bengal, I mean, you had absolutely no chance of that happening. We were small zamindars. So I believe that the feudal power was not, this is my historical analysis, they were never big enough to even constitute a class of people. And also, you have to understand that when the British came and took power of the Diwani, and most of the landholders were the Muslims. And very soon, they changed hand and a lot of Hindu landowners came into play. So there were the class, it changed. And then who were the landholders who were bought, who had the money to buy? They were traders. So they were in Kolkata, and this was in East Bengal. They had the zamindari in East Bengal. Like for example, Rabindranath Tagore and his grandfather.
Yes.
I mean, Thakur Bari was in Kolkata, but their land was in Pushtia. So I believe that the way I analyze history is our history is about small landholders, independent landholders who live in a vita. So they're always free. Who is there to, tell them what to do? As long as you are inside this vita, you are free. And you have to understand that even 100 years back, this place had lots and lots of forests. So there were free lands. People could come, cut the forest, clear the forest, and then start their own homestead.
Yes.
Which means there was no competition for land that, okay, this is there. In fact, when you look at the historical documents, you find that the Zamindars had to be aware that if they do too much pain, that the tillers will leave their place and so their land will stay uncultivated. So I believe that in a society like that, where small hamlets of betas, people independent living, we could not develop the skill set to manage complex societies, complex transactions.
Yes.
Right? But then when East Pakistan was created, Dhaka was a offshore town. Yeah, in fact, Dhaka was smaller in terms of administrative center than Mavinsi. Mavinsi had lots of zamindars and whatnot. Dhaka did not have that many. And so when government officers came, they did not have a house to live. And hence the AGB colonies of Motijebi and Ajimpur colonies were created to accommodate that. So what I'm saying that imagine this society, that there's an urban population, they don't have the skill to manage an urban society. What would happen? This would happen. Okay, and this continues to happen. Because of Constitution 71, we created a government to manage this complexity, and then government was not pro-people. They were like, okay, we are now in, let's distribute the wealth. That was their agenda, right? So we could never have a government or leadership who could take this new urban complexity that we are going on and come up with solutions. I often wondered that I spent part of my life in the States I studied and as I worked as a software engineer. And so when I came back, I was like, wow, full of energy because Bangladesh.
What was that?
When you come 2003. So 22 years, crazy. Okay, so the reality that I always felt that all these problems, but why aren't we talking about solutions? Why aren't we talking about the solutions? And we would engage in discussions, we'll create social groups, we would talk about solution. Our assumption was that the government does not know the solution. Okay. But it took me some time to understand, they're not looking for solutions. They're perfectly happy with what it is. For example, Dhaka City Corporation had 7 master plans presented to them by international experts. But the guy who was presented with this plan, his daily job was to understand how he can make money. He used to the going rate was you have to spend 5 crore taka to get to that position. So he had 2 years to make 5 crore and then again get 20 crore more. So every day he is working that, man, I have 2 years, how much of my goal I have reached. And now he is presented with this master plan that, okay, how to. It's totally irrelevant to him. The only relevance is, can we make more money? Okay. And so this is the first time. I think this is our society missing this. This is the first time our government, this interim government, is trying to understand solution, trying to implement, and asking for solution. We are trying to give them that this is what we can do. It's just, it's absolutely a different reality from what was the situation. And we have to understand, come December, if we have an electoral election,
Just for regime change.
we're going to have the same thing. The entire initiative to solve problems, what I said that from a sort of like a rural feudal system
Yes.
to a modern complex city state. Again, we'll go back to our historical medieval times. That will be left alone to do whatever.
We are in a conundrum. Right now, people want change, but ironically, if you give an election, those who are against the change would come to power. So, how do you explain that? And what's the way out? What's
As simple as that. First, we have to convince ourselves that this is not a circus. This is our lives and our lives of our children and their children. So hence, this is a simple question that parliamentary election, is it going to have an impact on my children and children's children? The answer is very simple. It has an extremely negative impact. We'll throw them for at least 20 to 30 years of our nation's history in the same thing that has been happening, right, for the last 50 years. So which means that this is not acceptable. That's the first step. This is not acceptable. Civil society, all political parties, except those who are to benefit, they need to be convinced themselves that this is not acceptable, right? It's right here now. It's not going to happen like in the next election or election after that. We have the best opportunity and we have to make use of it. Once we are convinced that this is not a circus, this is the reality and we have to act, then the answer comes very simple. The reason it comes very simple is our interim government has already presented us with a solution space.
yes.
Okay? Just for the fact that if somebody wanted to do good to the country and came up with a proposal, that would have served our purpose. Because the other governments, they would not want to even come up with a solution, correct? But in this case, it's not that these people just came as good people with good intention. We have extremely hardworking, intelligent, world-class people working on. Mr. Ali Riaz has done a fantastic, superhuman job.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we see that reflection. We see reflection of new ideas like Constitution Commission. It's going to solve all sorts of problems. So we have women's representations. They've solved the problem. So we have tons and tons of separation of judiciary, so accountability, how to do it, transparency, a lot of things have been done. So it's there. And what do they do? What are they doing now? They're doing the OCO Commission, which means they're calling all the political party. We have a meeting with them this next Sunday. So I'm telling them that what do you think about this particular proposal? What do you say? And they are brilliant in that sense that they have also given equal importance on how this constitution will change. That's also there. And one of the option is referendum. Surprise, surprise. Okay. Which is not in the civil society cookbook. But so this is there also because it's a very simple thing. Agree with them or give your input that this can be better. Send it for referendum. People will give their opinion. Voila. We have a new Bangladesh with the power distributed. You have a different reality where political government will not have a free reign over everything else. So solution space is very simple. But we have to first convince ourselves that election is a circus. Parliamentary election is a circus and this is not helping us.
Yes.
Because ultimately our children and children's future, and we are a large country,
Yes.
170 million people, so many children and children's children. So their future is in our hands. So we have no option. We have to first understand that the electoral system is a circus. That's not a solution. So it's not an option. Let's see how we can have reforms. How much reform? I think how much reform is not the question. How to implement reform is the main question. Because how much reform already we know. We have probably 10% disagreement or agreement. And those disagreements will be maybe 5% better than what the option was. Because the intention capability was high, and they also went through the due process of getting this survey, getting people saying. They spoke to our civil society, all the political parties. They got so there's absolutely every stone was turned. Okay, which means that the issue is how this will be implemented. The answer is also there. So we just have to be confident that this is what we should do.
You know what BNP is saying, that it's not just the civil society or the urban middle class or the elites, urban upper middle class. They are not the only stakeholders. And if you go to the grassroots, they have an overwhelming majority that would support their kind of fiefdom or their kind of feudal politics back to the medieval ages, because that's all they know. So what do you say to that? Because that's what they're pushing, that if you really want to see what people wants to see, then okay, give an election and let us see what the people say.
Okay. The thing is about, like I told you, that the concept of the circus has been sold, that this is democracy. But this is how the state works. No, democracy is a way to an end. It is not the end. The end is our people. And by the way, when we are talking about referendum and unity, this is part of democracy, democratic process.
Yes.
Okay, this is not undemocratic.
Direct democracy.
Right. So it is, the referendum has the highest mandate. The parliamentary system is a representative democracy. And referendum is direct democracy. People are saying that yes, this is our constitution. So what are they afraid of? Give people the chance that this is the referendum. This is the these are the proposals, and let people say what they feel. I think the responsibility lies not with BNP. BNP will say whatever. We can say that, please be human.
Yeah.
All right. But the responsibility lies with the other political parties. If they feel that they want to get into the circus and they have a chance, they will get a chunk of it, then the next chunk will be bigger, that type of thing. They have to be told that this is circus. And please understand the responsibility that you have right now, right here now. If you don't take this responsibility, then we will be nowhere. So, the political parties other than BNP, they need to be convinced that this is the way. And in fact, they should, because ultimately, if there's a constitutional change and we have proportional representation, their chance will increase automatically in the next election. Okay. So which means that they should politically, if they're intelligent, then they should also accept that this is the solution that they should want. But they have to be convinced that, they cannot be just scared that BNP, oh my God, they're going to win. I believe my analysis is inside they are convinced that the circus is the thing.
You're referring to NCP, aren't you?
No, I'm talking about not only NCP. I'm talking about even civil society. I'm talking about the average voter also. They also feel that, when BNP says that this is the mandate. So our civil society is to say, this is a circus. No, this is not going to serve our purpose. Like you said, 2,000 people have died and tens of thousands of people got injured. So this is not an option. We have to have reform, right?
What happened with the interim government? Professor Yunus, when he came, he said that it's the students that put me in power. But within a few months, we have seen him softening up, and Now he's just giving priority to the political parties instead of the people or the the injured and whoever are left. The Mahdi's, they cannot speak for themselves, but the Ghazis, they can.
I don't know what Professor Yunus thinks.
What do you think?
But in my view, a country of 170 million has 170 million problems.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not an easy job for any corporate champion to come and solve this problem because nobody has 170 million employees. So I'm sure that the reality that he is in or our interim government is in, it's a reality. And I have to tell you that what is the number that those $150 billion has been like siphoned out?
250 billions.
Something like that. So this 250 part of the 250 billion is being spent to create situations. 250 billion is not a small amount of money. So all these problems and people, let's come to people. When you say that, well, we just came through this huge upheaval, we have the entire government machinery was politicized. So therefore, we need to be patient. These problems need to be solved. Do you think people should listen to it? No. For people, revolution is fine. The people were there on the street, willing to give their life. So once it's done, it's like, how much money do I have to go to the market and buy these things?
Put food on the table for the kids.
Correct. So that began the problem. And the law and order situation, we all know that how police force was misused by the government. So therefore, law and order situation became a challenge, especially when those $250 billion was also spent to create a situation where this government will be in trouble. So I feel that, the benefit of doubt should go to this government because they have solved. We know that now that the prices of essentials have gone down tremendously, which is a historic thing. One of the things that you should remember, there's a Chinese proverb that all the problems in the world, if one is thinking about, will be solved just if he wears a shoe that is one size smaller than his feet. Where the pain is, that's what we think about. Nothing else matters. So people, you can have a rational explanation of all these problems and this, that. People will just, what is my problem today? And they will be dissatisfied. So this dissatisfaction needs to be solved, but it should not be taken as an indication that this government has failed. Because there will no way Bangladesh will be able to make their people satisfied, because 170 million people, again, and all the systems, we haven't built any institutions. We know it's 50 years of abuse of the system, right? Because of the circus that I was carrying about. So in my view, they have, for the first time in the Bangladesh history, that a case is being formed which will be internationally accepted, the evidence. So as you know that during our liberation war, we could not try properly anyone because of lack of evidence. So this is the first time we have evidence. Our inflation is under control. All the banks are not stealing, right? We know that there are elements close to the government is engaged in, earning money or collecting rent, as well BNP is collecting rent, which their leadership is also saying. So this is normal. It's supposed to happen that way. You cannot just stop it because this is the system. In fact, our average BNP worker knows more about how the state runs than our political scientists in our university, because that is the ground reality. And in the space when there's a vacuum, they immediately, like the example I gave you that happened in 5th August, you cannot blame that. That is supposed to happen. right? That's logical. So I believe that the Islam is trying their best, failing. And I also have to make another point. I remember quite well that August 5, August 6, August 7, when this conversation was taking place, that Dr. Yunus is coming. And who do we feel that the advisor should be? You have to understand that we were part of the movement against Hussain. So whoever that were consulted during that time, I mean, it's part of our extended friends group. Or, we would know in some way, maybe 2 degrees so separation does. So this spilled out to us also, that who we felt that needs to be in the advisory panel, even whether Dr. Yunus was the right person to be the chief. So we were part of this conversation, larger conversation, maybe 2nd or 3rd level. I remember what were the priorities that we had at that point in time. The priorities were, we needed a united nation. Hence, acceptable, who has a clean image. That was our priority. But do you think clean image can solve a problem of 170 million people? No. You need competence. I say that you need 3 elements, 3 C's: competence, conviction, confidence. These are the 3 things needed for if you want to solve the problem. But I remember very clearly at that point in time, we were not thinking of these 3. We were thinking of only acceptable, right? Somebody who was honest, right?
You had to contain the chaos.
No, I mean, you see, when situation, it's not possible to just get a clear picture when you're in a mist. So everything was unsettling, right? So it's very normal. So I think that in Bangladesh, to solve the problem, to get a consensus of who is competent, who is not competent, this person will not like that person. So it's not very easy to come up and give the sponsor, because again, we could not, so socially, the argument that we are pretty much rural society, we could never solve the problem of a complex urban society. So we don't have experience of how to manage things. Do you remember how many mayors we had? That has only Anisul Haq was our best mayor that we had, but he died before he could solve any problem, right? So which means that I do not blame this government. I do recognize the seriously important things that they have solved. I don't think they get enough credit for that. Like I mentioned, that collecting evidence that is internationally acceptable. People might think that's very easy, but no. Historically, not many nations have been successful in collecting and presenting evidence. So this creates a ground to try those killers, right? Which will be acceptable. This is a humongous thing. You need to give kudos to this government. The inflation situation, and I believe that they're trying their intention. No one has questioned their intention. No one has questioned their financial integrity. And it's 7 months, unprecedented in third world context, not only Bangladesh. So I believe that we have to keep them on check and keep them on their toes so that they perform, because mediocrity is acceptable in Bangladesh, but this situation, mediocrity will just not do.
What about the law and order, public security?
I believe that, it's I don't have the statistics to do it, but then again, I crossed Dhaka and I'm here. It's 11:30. I'm not feeling unsafe, but that's not the reality of Bangladesh. I shouldn't say that it is fantastic for you, but it is probably has gone down, but it is supposed to go down. It is not perfect, And there we can talk about all these different realities. And incompetence of the government is certainly one of the reality. So, but a country is like that. It's mix of white and black and all these things. So they should be judged about their incompetence and failing to deliver law and order situation, because law and order situation is a serious thing. But I have to tell you one thing, that there is an escalation ladder.
Mhm.
When you respond with a violence, you cannot, how do you respond to violence? If somebody comes and exercise violence against you, you will go to the state and say that you do violence too. You're a bigger power to do violence, right? When two nation fights, one nation resorts to violence, then the other nation has to respond with violence and higher violence.
Yes.
It's just the law of violence. So this, when this government is operating and the protests that are taking place, it's violent. So I mean, you stop a major intersection of the city, that's violence. So the response has to be with larger violence, but politically it will be suicide. So it's also a problem that you cannot respond with violence. I believe that this is a tricky business, that how to deal with violence when these type of things are happening, when it is becoming easy in perception, a lot of people, that if you go for violence, then you can get. We know that for some political party, right after they fall, they went to election commission, used violence and got the registration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So violence works, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that the problem of controlling law and order is easier for an autocratic government, because they don't have to care. They can kill anyone, right? But when you have a democratic government, it is a tougher job. And that's what PSC, that is part of the story. I'm not saying that their incompetence is not there. Incompetence is there. And I say three things: competence, confidence, conviction. The fear that I have, it's very easy for this government to give up and agree to, okay, we've had enough, give us a...
Now let's wash my hands off.
Right. So there, that chance is there, right? So I feel that as civil society member and a part of the political party, we cannot have that. So we have to hold them accountable that, no, you're responsible.
No, I totally understand. And that's why there is this cry for the home advisor to step down. And we are not seeing that happen. There should be a precedent set. And another thing I wanted to point out, all these attacks on the Mazars that's been going on, and Tulsi Gabbard, head of security for Donald Trump. So she is saying that Bangladesh is heading to the path of Khilafat. So something like that. And we are actually seeing some communal violence, not maybe towards Hindus as India is portraying, but between different sects of Islam. And it's being allowed to carry on. Nothing is being done. And my last point is, if this interim government was sworn in under the fascist constitution of 1972, then the chief advisor still has the power of the prime minister, the fascist prime minister had. So if we know the political parties, they are corrupt and people are treating this as a game of circus or whatnot. But if we have the common good of the people in our heart, then we can also exercise, the chief advisor can exercise that power and actually make it work, make people listen to what common sense would hurt you.
Two things. I mean, one is the chief advisor and another is the Tulsi Gabbard story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in Bangladesh, we ask anyone, I mean, who's not politically affiliated with Awali. We find very strange that in our country, communal violence is happening. It is strange. It has always been, in my reading, it has always been sort of in the marginal cases. And it was always done by the political parties who were in power. doesn't matter Awami League, BNP, who are in power, and it has sort of the wealth making, rent seeking that was in their mind. So it never reflected the social condition. I don't feel that in our society, Hindu and Muslim were lived happily ever after. No, because A, we're not marrying into each other's communities, so we don't have visibility of what the other community is thinking. And if you look at villages, how society is structured, you will see Hindu para, Muslim para. So which means that there is a difference. But difference doesn't mean that one group is going there and beating people up. So which is difference is fine.
Coexistence is there.
Coexistence is there. Now, in terms of the Islamic and inside Islam factions and all, again, it is political. It is never social. It is instigated. You can instigate things. People are not, and also there is an element that, okay, now this decent government is in place. And also you have to remember, for 15 years, the narrative of Mukti Yuddha Chetona, I mean, oppressed those people who were on the religious side of things. Okay?
Definitely.
And I know that the civil society organization, those who were not aligned with Awami League, they also fell on this side. Right? And people like us, we're saying that, okay, wait a minute, Shah Abdul Karim, these are our products. So, this communal things, this songs that are naturally anti-communal, this should be in the forefront of our cultural domain, not just Rabindranath and the Panchapuk. So we had also a cultural domain. Now that Awami League is gone, our civil society position towards the religious people has moved to a center. So now what the religious community, religio-political community, those are there, they're sort of in a new world situation. So they're speaking out, they're reacting to this suppression, that 15-year suppression. So that is also creating some things. And if I were Awami League with $250 billion, this would be certainly a place where we would spend money. We know during the first month that we found people who were burning Hindu houses. We found people coming. I was reported on the news that they were paid to do that. So I believe that the strength of this community is, even though we have differences, but we don't believe in violence. We're not India. I'm sorry to offend. What we see in India is a huge zealous thing,
Yes.
a communal thing. Bangladesh is, no one will even have the courage to come out and politically take these positions. People will beat them up. So Tulsi Gabbard needs to understand Bangladesh. They should talk to Bangladeshis for the narrative. Just because of their political interest or political cordoning of Indian diaspora, she just cannot speak like that. It just reflects on her ignorance and nothing much. We believe that it is not the position of the US. Because US at this point in time is very busy internationally, global, lot of situations are happening. So this is a one-off thing, sort of like a goodwill of Tulsi Gabbard in this new constituency of Indian thing. So my suggestion is she should come and understand Bangladesh, see Bangladesh, talk to Bangladesh.
Do you not see this as a warning to Bangladeshi people that we have seen Israel bombing Gaza again, breaking the ceasefire agreement, right? So do you see this as a warning for Bangladeshi people if there is a rise of militant Islamists over here? We can face the same fate?
I don't think so. Not at all. I think U.S. foreign policy is not, does not change like this. U.S. foreign policy has foreign policy professionals that there are. Political government can come and do something this type of things. I think it does not reflect any position.
During Trump's term, how can we be so sure? Everything's changing every day.
Yes, things are changing, but you have to understand that Trump is for smaller government, not larger governments.
Yeah.
right? So, which means that what they can do. And just that you notice that we are pretty far away from Trump. The government has said very clearly that Bangladesh government has no problem with US. Salahuddin Shahab has said that they have no problem. So Bangladesh will not give any, message that US is not my friend, because we export a lot of.
They are friends. Yeah, definitely.
So I believe that I personally don't feel that Tulsi Gabbard's statement is part of a strategy of the United States. There is a fear in Bangladesh that Myanmar is going to soon turn into a war zone and that type of thing. I feel that obviously because this is the hinge zone between the China and the Eurasian border. So this will be a hot, but not that hot. That is my feeling. I think Professor Yunus bringing the UN Secretary General, I think that is a smart move. Because ultimately the solution is that the 12 million Rohingyas needs to go back to their homeland. So we need to start doing something towards that. And I believe the UN Secretary General coming to Bangladesh is a step towards that, not a step towards what Tulsi Gabbard might say, that creating a war zone in this adventurous. I don't think that
ICC, International Criminal Court, the top officials were held accountable and sanctioned by United States after Donald Trump came into power. So that's also a reality. So UN doesn't have that much power anymore. We know that
I agree with you, UN doesn't have. But you have to understand, if Bangladesh wants to do something about this, that repatriation of the Rohingyas, what options do we have? Do we have the power to go in ourselves and get a chunk of? We don't. Absolutely, that would be disaster for Bangladesh. So what do we do? The cards that we have is use these cards. These are rational international politics card. That we have to say that UN is the body, the most powerful body that is there. That is to our advantage. We say UN is nothing, that is not working towards advance. So foreign policy and these maneuvering, we have to understand. But I am pleased that Bangladesh is at us moving towards the solution space.
yes,
That is there. So that is my positive. And my understanding is US is not looking for creating a theater of war in this area, because it doesn't. It is, China will not feel compelled to come and to Arakan to fight a war. So you will not be able to engage, because now you have Arakan army, then we have Tatmadaw, the Burmese, the Myanmar army, then you have another Chin. So there are lots of boundaries. So I don't think, I think the US would geopolitically would try to create some pressure because of the Malacca Strait is there. So that they will do, but it will not result, or it has not been, not enough things have happened that you can say that they're really trying to build this as a theater of war. I don't think that is too much. I'm not concerned about.
my question was, why is Professor Yunus not using his executive power, all the power that his constitution has empowered him with?
Okay, I am a cricket fan.
Yeah.
And I believe cricket solves all the problem.
Okay.
If you look at a cricket team, Bangladesh cricket team, that is a huge popular demand. Every game our fans have this thing that their only cricketing comment is, get him out of the team. Why is he not playing? Why is he playing? So the idea is, populist idea is, if you just for one bad performance or two bad performances, you just take him down and somebody else needs to come into it. But if you look at cricket strategy, a mature strategy, then you know that this does not help a team at all. Because cricketer needs to develop a confidence, needs to give a chance. but there's a limit to that chance. So there's a complex narrative or complex strategical discussion. The same thing applies to Dr. Yunus. That why can't he just fire someone and bring somebody else as if that's going to solve a problem? For us who have worked in leadership position in organizations, business organizations, we know it doesn't solve a problem. Just firing someone. Okay, you have to give chance. It's a complex solution.
Even the fascist collaborators, give chance to them.
Let me tell you a story about 1971, from 71. The international civil society support was totally for Bangladesh. In the US, UK, Europe, everywhere people are.
Just like we have for Gaza right now.
Right. So 16 December, we got our freedom. And 18 December, in stadium area, in front of all the journalists, international journalists, Kader Siddiqui, he just brought two suspected Razakars and bayoneted them to death. Just one incident that took away all sympathy of the entire world because it won the Pulitzer Prize. So this is Bangladesh. So please understand that Bangladesh cannot afford to lose international support of when they try Sheikh Hasina and company. So it is one of the biggest achievement of this government that they did not. They have showed patience, followed the due process and worked these things. You see, this government, doesn't go out and say constantly this, we are doing this with, they've done it. And before they'd done it, we had no idea. Now the ground is clear. Well, now if we can't bring those people in justice, then international community will say due process have been followed. So Bangladesh will not lose international support. And it's extremely important for Bangladesh to keep the international support. We cannot afford to say that we are with a banana republic. We just bring anybody and summary judgment, create a banana court, and we cannot afford to do that. But that in the streets, these one of our friends have been threatened with public hanging.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
That's immediate, right? So should we listen to it? No. So we need to follow the due process. When it comes to justice, there's no option. You have to follow the due process. So we can say that they have failed. We have our huge expectations from our side that this needs to happen, that needs to happen. But the way I work is, I ask myself, if I was in their position, would I be able to do a better job? The answer that I get, I'm not sure. So that's why I give them the benefit of doubt, because one of the things is, I'm sure, the way they operate, the way prosecutors operate, his intention is absolutely spot on.
Yes.
And he feels democratically also, if people don't want him to be there, he should not be there. And maybe he also does maneuvering the political party. When you are in power and you're in a complex situation like this, extremely complicated, powerful situations, all power actors are playing, I think there are scope, or you would know how to maneuver through this junket. It's not just simple populist thing and you just go ahead and do it. That doesn't happen because you understand the reality. It's always give and take.
I don't want to talk about elections before the reforms, but I do want to talk about the electoral reforms. I know for sure that Rastro Songskar Andolon, Kayum Bhai recently filed a writ petition in court. So do you care to explain what happened, what's going to happen now?
Okay, the electoral, one of the things that political party registration rule was created probably back in 2008, at that time in the 111 government. And one of the weird things that was included in that law, the registration law, that a political party can only be registered if they have 100 odd offices all around Bangladesh.
22 zillas and something like that.
22 zillas and 100 upazila or thana.
Yeah.
Now, and they have to prove that they have sort of rental agreements and that type of things. The implication of it is, it sounds good, like, okay, political parties have a mass-based things, but the ground reality is it takes a lot of money to create these things. And also remember that, we have people in the hemp tracts. So we have these people,
Even shelters.
their presence is limited to a single area. So to tell them that you have to have offices all around Bangladesh, it restricts their chance to do politics. And based on this, our Electoral Reform Commission has changed this law and said 25 upazilas and some, I don't know, maybe 10 zilas and 5,000. So it is their understanding. And now Election Commission has unilaterally said, no, I'm going to do it. It's the old administration, Bangladesh bureaucratic feudalism. It's a reflection of that. Not listening to anyone and thinking that he or she knows best what needs to be done. And also, we have reason to believe that it's not as, naive as that.
It is not.
Okay. So the political play is part of the political different power maneuver. What we have done is based on this that we have, filed a writ and it has been accepted that to stop this from happening. But again, even in that writ, they have stopped it for us only, not for all. What we feel that electoral reform, the things that has done, it doesn't need to go to that referendum. It can go through executive order. The reason is, if you don't have this reform, electoral reform, you cannot have any type of referendum. You cannot have. So you cannot go to a election, any kind of constituent assembly or referendum without electoral reform. So the option, you're forced to have an executive order to do it. So we feel that in terms of electoral reform, we can go for some of the reform. We can go for the executive order, and this should be part of the whatever the electoral reform committee has suggested. Those needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, exactly. Without proper reforms, there is no point in holding an election. And my grievance is the election commission was formed before the electoral reforms were done. The laws were set in place. The election commission, they're still playing by the old rules. So they can say that, okay, these are the rules that exist right now and we can actually promote that. How do you see Rastro Songskar Andolon if an election comes in December or maybe next June? Where do you place yourselves?
What we feel that, there's a sort of a rumor on the ground that we discussed a bit about it, that BNP is willing to give up some seats to some of their friends. And a lot of people are hopeful that they'll be part of these friends. Rastro Songskar Andolon believes that electoral politics is not a circus. So Rastro Songskar Andolon will try to participate and beat whoever wants to fight with us. And however small numbers of spaces that we are hopeful that we will have some representation in the next electoral government, which I have told you that is not our main intention. Our in 24 hours a day, 20 hours are spent on how we can make sure that reforms are taking place, and maybe 4 hours we're spending on our electoral gain. But so we feel that in the electoral game, however small our participation is, our voice will be heard by everybody of this country, because we have not compromised and we will not compromise on the people of Bangladesh. We feel it's our responsibility to be that voice, which means that we feel that once that happens, in the electoral circus also, Rastro Songskar Andolon will move from strength to strength. So that is our outfit.
Well, thank you so much for giving us time, Hasib Bhai.
It was an engaging conversation, and I also forgotten to even finish the tea. So it was an engaging conversation. So I thank you. I thank the audience. For staying with us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.